All right, so I'm gonna pin myself here. All right, so for today, what we're going to do is look at hierarchical data and how to represent it in Flow. In addition, sort of overlaid on this is a bit of time series data. So there's sort of a time element. Now you could just classify time as another category. So it's just another layer of a hierarchy. And I think that's likely how we'll probably start to mix this up, but we can explore a few options there. So to facilitate this, this file in our demo media and assets data folder called grocery inflation. And I'll just explain it here real quick. And I'll actually send you this link, which I'll actually let me just go ahead and put this in the chat window. This will also be in the notes or in the description for anyone watching this asynchronously on YouTube afterwards. So that is a direct link. And just as a reminder, we do have this open folder for demo media and assets, which I'll also put here, that is full of goodies to help you get going. So on grocery inflation, what we are looking at is a set of goods and looking at it across 3 periods of time. So we're going from the price in US dollars for flour, rice, eggs, milk, cheese, so grocery items. They do vary quite a bit in terms of price point. And thus, one additional thing that's is added is a percentage change variable, where we're setting 1981 to basically be 0, or like the baseline, and then what is the percent change? And I should make these percentages. Actually, I'll leave it like that, but times 100 would be the correct conversion to show as a percentage here. But I'm going to do that formatting within the editor to make it a little easier. So anyways, different ways to see the same changes. And so in some sense, we could look at this as traditional time series data and look at that change over the period. But I think it's going to be interesting to start to, layer this in using a hierarchy too. So that is going to be the objective for today. Any questions before we start to dive in?
Oh, I got one question for Stephen. Stephen, you want to join me in a breakout room?
Killing me, Bill. Yeah, you have to go now. You don't
want to do a breakout room right now, Stephen?
Love it.
Whatever you guys want, however you want to do it.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, let's start to dive in. So here in the Flow editor, and I will make this just a little bit bigger, or zoom in rather, just on the browser side so you can see it just a little more clearly. And I'll make it full screen. Not gonna make it full screen, not quite. And what we're going to do is load in the data. So we are going to click select/upload. And from here, we are going to load not a CSV, but instead a Google spreadsheet. And I'm going to copy this URL and paste it in. By default, it's going to look at this range, which is basically almost everything. But if it was outside that range, you'd have to specify. And we're importing that sheet now. So each dot here, in the traditional way to look at it, is a row of the data sets. So for every row we see here, we have a representation of that value that we can basically move around. So we're moving a point around, and we can only look at basically one column at a time. And so aggregation allows you to look at multiple columns sort of in aggregates. Hence aggregation or hierarchy. And so let's start to just layer this in and sort of start from the beginning. So the very first thing you might do is to create sort of the very traditional view, which is a scatter plot. On the width axis, we'll put the year, indicating it's a timeline. So we're going to put year, and then on the height axis, we'll put the price in US dollars. And on the depth axis, we're going to have the different items represented here. And let's go ahead and assign a color by adjusting the color scheme and making that color scheme match the categories. And so we're going to say the column item is what we want to parse on. And it's using the default color scheme. Let's just leave it there. And to make it more clear to people, we would probably add in some connections to connect these lines together when the item is the same between them. And so we're seeing basically 3 dots in space and seeing a bit of some trend lines there. The one last thing that might do here is to more clearly show these by sorting it. So what we can do is sort the depth axis so that we're looking at maybe the peak end value. I think could be interesting to look at. So what we'll do is we're going to sort this by the last value within the column item. And we're going to have this in ascending order. And if I'm not mistaken, that does not look quite right. Let me try maximum value instead. Okay, so there might be something going on with the sorting here. Let me just double check this by first saving. And so after it is saved, I will refresh and just double check that it's not just a change with preview. So it is not. So let me.
What's catching your eye there, Michael?
I'm trying to sort them by the maximum value, which in all cases is the end value, and to put them in order.
Yeah. Okay.
That was sort of the intent here. So apologies for that. Let me just try summing all values. It seems like something's just there's some bug here that we should look into. So apologies for that. I'm going to keep it just to alphabetical. Oh wait, last item. Oh, sorry, last value within price. Okay. First one. Okay, now I got it. I think there's a little confusion there. What it's doing is saying first value that it runs into and looking at the price column, not the item column. So my apologies for that mistake there. So now we have the end year sort of sorted correctly. And so I could make this a little tighter together just to show more of a sparkline type view. And we can see wine is sort of the outlier here. Is a huge increase in dollars between these years. But now let's look at it this different way, which is instead of looking this as a scatter plot, we are going to look at it as hierarchy. So to do that, I am going to duplicate this swarm. And I'll add a new step here. And on this next step, I'm only going to have swarm 2 visible. So I'm unchecking the visibility of the first swarm and the associated connections. And on this swarm, we need to go back into this edit reupload area. And this is where we create the hierarchy. And so we want to create a hierarchy that has the item as sort of the base of that hierarchy. And then what we can see is within each of those, we can have different years and the item. So we'll put year after item. And then what we'll want to do is for price, we are going to aggregate the average, which basically will show more of the trend. And we want to do the same for percentage change, although I don't think we'll likely fully utilize that at the end. So as I click through this, you'll basically see at the very root node level, the year as the, the year here. And then above that, or the level above that is item. So item is the root, and then we have the different years represented. And anything else? Just double check one thing. Yeah, so I guess there's two ways to do this. One is just having item as the root and not having a second layer. We'll still have the year data within it. And let's try that first, and then we'll create a more complex one right afterwards. So we'll want to create a snapshot. So now we have captured this aggregation as well, or the aggregation and averaging calculation here that's building this hierarchy. And so now if we go back to the flow, we will want to make sure that the snapshot is selected. So we'll want to select snapshot 1, which is the thing we just were creating with. And essentially what we have here is ability to create basically the same looking feel, but let me actually do this with a hierarchy. And so instead of looking at this as a scatter plots, we are going to go to hierarchy. And so by default, hierarchies are created in a circular pattern. We can also make it linear, which let's start with linear just to begin with. And so on the left here is the roots of the hierarchy, and then on the right is the node, or the end nodes, or the last nodes of the hierarchy. And to make it more understandable, let's actually add some labels. So by clicking new labels, I can basically set what I want to show up. And so typically that is if you include hierarchy group, that will be basically the name associated with the top level hierarchy. I could also, in this case, just click item, and that would then cover all of the above. So the nodes, which are items, as well as this hierarchy level for the item group. So let's leave it as just the hierarchy group. And that way we can create a different label that's just for the node. And on that node, let's actually just put the price. So I'm going to put the price in US dollars. And I'm also going to put this on the left center. And we'll format this data. So click on format. We're seeing all the exponentials there, or not exponentials, but as it continues on. So we'll want to change this to a percentage. And I believe that updates correctly. Oh, and beyond that, sorry, we also need to specify how precise this should be. So we'll leave this at sort of the base level. So here we're seeing the overall average percent change of coffee. So this is doing the aggregation and showing us the average. Oh, sorry, this is price in US dollars, not percentage change. So sorry about that. I am still getting back into the groove of things, it would seem. So here we go, dollars, and we'll keep this with 2 decimal places. There we go. So apologies about that, but this is the average price over that period of time, and this is the change over time. And so with this, let's then look at the next component, which would be to look at the time series in addition to this. So I'm going to create new connections here, connecting these based on the hierarchy level. And that just helps you more visually connect what's going on. And so before I jump to the next step, the most typical thing we work with in hierarchy is that the layer coming out is an additional dimension. So we have it built in here. It's called height. And this is where we can specify basically a numeric value. And so we'll have price here. And so price we'll want to go from 0 to the maximum value here of let's say 14. So we have 1 through 14, and it's going from 0 to 14. Over a meter in length. And so now we're seeing the same thing. And one tip, I guess, is, at least for me, I often rotate these so it feels more like it's coming up. And so you're looking at something that's it's coming. How do I phrase it? Sorry. or it's coming off of a table as opposed to at view. And so to illustrate that, or let me sort of pause there. But the other way to look at this is, let me go ahead and duplicate this swarm and add a new step. And so I will hide the visibility on the second one. And we are going to look at this with a different snapshot. So we're going to go first to snapshot 1. And on this one, we are going to add in the year component as another level of the hierarchy, basically. I want to create a snapshot from that. And so now it breaks down year in addition to the other values here. So now if I go back and basically try to do the same thing, you'll notice just a few things that are different. So first I'm going to want to make sure to select snapshot 2. And now when I go through this, and I think I need to change it. So I need to change it and then change it back to hierarchy. And then it will sort of show up refreshed. And it starts out circular, but we'll make it linear. So now we know we have 3 levels of the hierarchy. So we have the root node, the first level of the hierarchy, and the second level. And so we can have the same labels or the same information, but to follow along, if we do hierarchy group, it's only going to be showing the hierarchy level 2 and level 1. So those will be showing. And so let me move this such that it's move it to the left and center. Cool. And then we'll also add a label here, new label, and look at the price. And this will apply for all. We'll also want to apply that similar formatting. So look at the price and we want 2 decimal places. There we go. And let's put this on the right center. Oh, that looks bad, sorry. We'll put it on the center top. That's also rough, but okay, sorry, changing my mind one last time. Right and center. I'll just give it a little bit. Or actually, sorry, left on this one and then right on the other one. I think that should be more clear. And I'll push this a little to the left. Okay, apologies about that. But I do think that's a little more clear. And so in a similar manner, we can also have this coming out towards us. So we're adding in a height dimension that will be looking at the price in US dollars going from $0 to $14. And so we end up with a similar curve once I add in the connections, which we will want to do based on the hierarchy level. And so now we're seeing a few different things. Let me rotate this by 90 degrees, -90. And so we're seeing the second level of the hierarchy here as the year. And in this case, the year is always there's only one node per year, but you can imagine having a data set that has many, many nodes per year. And so then you're averaging and looking at that time span, and then you're looking at the overall category over all time and the average there. So anyways, that's a bit of what you can do with hierarchies at a real basic level. I'm not going to say that this is like a revolutionary visualization, but the ability to basically nest information together at different levels is something a little bit more novel. And as you add more complexity, you can actually do some, pretty powerful things. So let me pause there and I guess see what questions you have. And let me, so start from there.
What would be what are hallmarks of a data set that makes sense for a hierarchical chart? This one looked like it was easier to explain with the first chart you showed.
Let me it's always, I don't want to say I've mastered it. Let me definitely preface that, but let me just go back here at our featured flows.
Yeah, while you're doing that, Michael, Stephen, I've seen quite a few of these, and one classic use is kind of an organizational representation. So you've got an organization that's within country, within state, within city, that kind of thing, or sales volumes that have that kind of layering along geographical lines. That's kind of a classical use of this.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And this is maybe the one I've spent the most time sort of refining. So this is the geographical view. So we have each purple dot is a county, so the latitude and longitude of the county. And you can see this bar coming up. That's the height of the bar is on this scale. It's the number of children that are under 6. And so if we add up each of these purple dots per state, and each state is here where the center of it is the center of the state, that we see then the aggregate total for each state. And then another layer up, we are looking at the regions. And so it's essentially different tent poles, I guess, is one way to look at it. And then the very last tent pole of looking at all of the US is 23.7 million. And so you can essentially start to like zoom in some sense. And as you scale things up, you're looking at different levels. So now we're looking more at the state level and comparing and contrasting a few things. But yeah, I guess that's one use case is pretty strong visually because you're using the map and latitude, longitude in sort of a novel way to see some dimensionality. And now that I see this one, let me just try one thing on this inflation graph, sort of, in somewhat agreement with you, and turn off connections on this, but instead create some connections that go to the, to the axis or map. This is along the depth dimension because I rotated it 90 degrees. And so now we can at least see the heights a little more clearly. Yeah, not perfect, but yeah, anyways. So yeah, doing hierarchy that way is very powerful, as well as Bill mentioned, more organizational charts or different levels of an organization, or even like in sports, I guess, for like different regions, different championships or different leagues, and yeah, things like that I think could be applicable, or what position they're playing. You want to look at just linebackers, and that's the other sort of aspect here is if you start to layer in some filtering mechanism, the hierarchy allows you to more easily filter through information. So it's another sort of use case beyond sort of the visual component.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, it feels good to get back into the groove of things of teaching again. But I will admit that I have been out of commission here with COVID as well. I'm fully good now, but yeah, definitely was a swift punch to the face for a little bit there. But anyways, hopefully this was helpful. Let me stop this recording here.